Hey, if you believe these VA disability myths, you could be leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table. Don't let bad info cost you big money. Because this week, we're going to the top 5 VA disabilities that are costing you money. I'm Mr. X, and this is the VA top 5. You want the truth? Here it is. You can work while receiving VA disability. Okay? Unless you're on individual unemployability. And even in those circumstances, there are limits to what you can work. Okay, so the myth that you can't work if you're on VA disability, absolutely false. Many veterans miss out on employment or income because they think that any work disqualifies them from that disability. So, if you're at anything less than 100%, you can work to your heart's content. If you've been granted entitlement to individual unemployability or TDIU, there are income limits to that. Now, if you are service-connected at 100%, P&T and dependents educational assistance has already been granted, that basically means that the VA is conceding, hey, you're at 100%, our hands are up, this is where you're at. If that's the situation, and you're able and willing to, you can go out and get a full-time job if you want and double dip. Essentially, if you did your 20 years in the military and retired, you could be pulling money there. If you were service-connected at 100% VA disability, you could be pulling money there. And if you went out and got a job, you'd be pulling big-time money there. I know many veterans that are doing all free. Huge amounts of money you could be leaving on the table. Obviously, every veteran, every one of you, the story's different. Everyone's qualified for different things. Okay, so there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to this. Leave me a comment if you have any questions. But work you're not disqualified from work. Myth number 2 is that once you're rated, you can't increase your rating. Now, this seems kind of obvious that once you are rated, you can absolutely go up. Now, I'll caution you that if you file for an increase, depending on what condition it is, it could go down. So you want to be certain that, an increase is warranted. And maybe think to yourself, well, why are you bringing this up? Isn't it obvious that you can always increase your rating? Well, some veterans don't know. They put in for a condition or they're service connected for something, 10, 20 years go by, and then they think they're not entitled to an increase. And that's just false. For example, let's say you're service connected for a shoulder condition back in 2002. Back at that time, the minimum compensable evaluation was 10% based on pain. Now, that has gone up to 20%. Seen many cases where the veteran is service-connected for their right shoulder and haven't filed for an increase in 20 years, and they're leaving benefits on the table. You can always file for an increase if your condition has worsened. You'll be able to prove that it's worsened, so make sure that you're submitting all the medical evidence. Not waiting too long, like I just explained, could be costing you years and years of higher compensation and back pay. Going back to that shoulder example, difference between a 10 and 20%, let's say it's $100 a month. I know it could be more or less or whatever, okay? $100 a month times 12, that's $1,200 a year for 20 years. Right there, 20 plus grand. Huge amounts of money. Along, myth number 3 is if you're at 100%, you have nothing left to gain. Okay, Now, in some circumstances, there may be little to gain. For it 100% and you're applying for a right knee condition, if you're not having a right total knee replacement or something like that, then there's not a whole lot to be gained. If you're only going to get service connected at 10 or 20%, yeah, that's not going to, for it at 100%, what's 110%? Okay, so there are some limits there. Now, what I am going to say is this, is whatever you do, you don't want to put that 1% at risk. Okay, so my suggestion here is if you apply for anything after the 100%, you're putting in for, hey, I'm service connected for my right knee, I'm having right knee surgery, put in a claim for that because you'll get awarded the temporary total 100% evaluation, which doesn't seem like a lot because you're already service connected at 100%. But you will qualify for those special monthly compensation benefits on top of that for a short period of time. Okay, leaving money on the table right there. Other examples. So even at 100%, you might not be at 100% permanent total status, which unlocks more benefits like the dependents educational assistance, but other benefits that you can apply for, there's special adaptive housing. There are other benefits for special monthly compensation. Okay, in the end, just because you're at 100% doesn't mean there's nothing left to gain, but let's be smart about it. Because first and foremost, you don't want to put that 100% permanent total status at risk. Myth number 4 here, and this one is huge. That is, the VA will automatically give you the highest rating you deserve. Okay? Reason why this is a myth is there's lots of factors between the moment you apply for service connection for your condition or apply for an increase up until the point where you receive that rating decision. Okay? Because once you go to your exam, you have the examiner there who's got to mark down all your symptoms, and if you're not prepared for it, didn't submit all the evidence that shows clearly what your symptoms are, then you may be robbing yourself of an opportunity for a higher evaluation. Even after that, once the VA rater looks at it, they're going through all the evidence. Now, they might honestly make a mistake while completing their evaluation and put in the wrong number or consider something lower. That has happened many, many times. Let's hope not. Okay, cross my fingers for you. But VA is not going to automatically just give you the highest rating you deserve. Now, it's not saying it's on purpose, like I said, but could be some mistakes along the way, and they're not intentionally, I'll say this for a fact, they're not intentionally trying to hold you back to then down the road award benefits and say, yep, you're right here. You know, it's not a progressive thing. I know some veterans, I know some of you are going to disagree with me on that. Okay? But let's look at this from an optimist standpoint. Okay? They're not going to hold back benefits, but there is a margin for error in the examiner and the rater. Okay, so because of that, you got to look at it. You got to look at the whole picture. Do you have any questions about whether you're rated at the highest you possibly can for your disability? Then throw something in the chat. Leave me a comment. Say, hey, I've been service connected for my right shoulder at 10% since 2002. I can say right then and there, really quick, and hey, if you still have painful motion of your shoulder, then there's an almost 95% chance that it's going to go to at least 20%. Now, whether that difference is big enough to bump you up to the next tier, 60 to 70, 70 to 80%, or 90 to 100, I don't know. But I know something small like that is huge. And if it's something as small as, $100 a month, over the long term, 1, 2, 5, 10 years, tens of thousands of dollars. And myth number 5, I did partially touch on this one earlier. That is, you have to be medically retired to get VA disability. The truth is, VA disability is separate from military retirement. Even if you were honorably discharged without medical retirement, you still qualify for VA compensation. Now, what you qualify for will depend on when you served, where you served, what's in your service treatment records, and all sorts of other bits of information that are in your file. And every one of you, you're different. Every one of you, there are specific things that you should be applying for that is different than the next veteran. Okay? So, go through your records. My suggestion, go through your service treatment records. Look for things that you're treated for in service. If you still are seeking treatment for those same symptoms or conditions, put it in a claim. Okay? Because you don't have to be medically retired to get VA disability. Many veterans apply for VA disability even before they leave service. And frankly, I recommend that you do that. Because if you have your exams before you leave service, whether or not you're treated for that disability in service, because that exam happened before you left service, it counts as an in-service event, and service connection is almost guaranteed. It's the biggest tip of the week right there. All right, wrapping it up here because I've overlapped on some of this and I've gone a little bit longer than expected. But seriously, don't let any of these myths or any other myth that I haven't mentioned keep you from getting those benefits and money that you deserve. And I want you to think big picture, think aggregate, think long term. So, if we're talking $100, $200, $500 a month, over 12 months, over 5, 10, 20 years, I don't care who you are, that's a large amount of money. Money that you're entitled to, money that you deserve. Okay? Now, when they need missing out on something, there may be more myths. If you know of any myths, you have questions, draw me a comment. Ask me. I'll respond to every comment that I get. If you have any questions about things that you may be overlooking or conditions that could apply to you. Now, going back to that shoulder example for service-connected for your shoulder at 10% from 2002, 95% chance you can get an increase on that if you have painful motion of your shoulder. Okay? Draw me a comment. Ask me questions. Okay? I'll do my absolute best to answer your question in its entirety. Okay? Now, there may be some things I don't know because I don't have access to your file. But I will respond to every comment. Okay? In the end, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought. If I missed out on a myth, let me know what it is. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment about what you thought, or what you would like us to address in the future on Mr. X. This is the VA Top 5.